The rain had been falling all evening, thin silver threads weaving through the cold light of the city. Alex sat by the window of their small apartment on the outskirts of town, watching drops slide down the glass like tears. Behind him, the cracked walls and dim bulbs whispered of years spent chasing a life that never quite arrived. He turned his gaze toward the woman asleep on the couch. Bella, her hair spilled over the pillow, her breathing soft and even. For a moment, he felt peace. Then, as if on cue, the familiar ache returned, that quiet awareness that something between them had changed. Bella used to smile differently, with warmth that could melt the frost in his chest. But lately her smiles were rehearsed, her sighs louder, her words sharper. "I just want more, Alex," she would say, staring at her phone, scrolling through pictures of people who had everything. Cars, champagne dinners, the city skyline from penthouses. "I'm tired of living like this." Alex always answered the same way, softly with patience that came from years of surviving hardship. "We'll get there, I promise. Just give me time." She never said okay. Alex had learned to survive long before he learned to dream. His mother had died when he was 9, and his father drowned himself in bottles soon after. His grandmother raised him, a quiet, iron-hearted woman who taught him that love isn't about words but about endurance. He was always good with his hands, machines, circuits, gears. He could fix what was broken, except for people, except for himself. Months passed. Bella stopped cooking, stopped laughing, stopped looking at him the way she used to. But Alex loved her too deeply to see clearly. He saved every extra dollar, working double shifts, eating instant noodles so he could buy her something special. Something that would remind her of why they started. One gray morning, with trembling hands and tired eyes, he walked into a jewelry store. The ring sparkled like a small sun in the glass case. Simple, elegant, far beyond what he could afford. He bought it anyway. As the jeweler boxed it, another man stepped up to the counter. Tall, confident, wearing a watch that cost more than Alex's yearly rent. "That diamond bracelet," the man said casually. "I'll take it. My new girl loves shiny things." Alex glanced at him, and then at the bracelet. It glittered with the kind of light that never reaches the edges of the city where he lived. He smiled politely, took his ring, and left. A week later, he was ready. He had planned everything. Candles, her favorite song, the promise of forever wrapped in one fragile question. But fate has a cruel sense of timing. Scrolling through social media that afternoon, looking for ideas to make the proposal perfect, Alex stopped cold. On the screen, a picture posted by Bella's friend, a group at some rooftop bar downtown. And there was Bella laughing, wearing that same bracelet, the one from the jewelry store. His world fell silent. He stared until the image blurred, his breath uneven, his hands numb. 1,000 questions screamed inside him, but none had answers that didn't hurt. That night when she came home, smelling of perfume that wasn't hers, he didn't ask. He didn't shout. He just looked at her and understood everything. Later, standing on the rooftop of their building, the wind cutting through his thin jacket, Alex held the ring in his hand. The city stretched below, a map of dreams he'd never reach. He whispered, almost to himself, "I wanted to give you the world." Then he opened his fist. The ring slipped from his fingers, catching a flicker of light before vanishing into the dark. For the first time in years, he felt empty and free. He thought of calling his best friend Daniel, the boy who had grown up with him, who once promised they'd build something great together. But Daniel had moved abroad, made it big, became someone who belonged to another world. Alex sat there, staring at the horizon, thinking maybe it was time to disappear too. Then his phone rang. "Alex, it's been too long," Daniel's voice came through, warm and alive. "Listen, we're hiring at the company, engineering division. I told them about you, but they need someone now. Can you come?" Alex laughed softly, disbelief breaking through the fog. "Now? Are you serious?" "Completely. You've got 1 hour to say yes." And for the first time in a long time, Alex did. Years passed. The boy who once threw a ring off a rooftop became a man who designed cities. His hands built things that lasted. His eyes, once tired, now carried light. He met someone, a quiet woman who loved books more than diamonds, and whose laughter filled the silence he never knew was killing him. They built a home filled with music, warmth, and everything money couldn't buy. One evening, in a high-end restaurant, Alex was having dinner with his wife. He didn't notice the woman at the next table until he heard her voice. Familiar, trembling slightly. Bella. Time had changed her. Still beautiful, but with a loneliness that no luxury could hide. Alex, she whispered, smiling nervously. I can't believe it's you. You look incredible. He smiled politely, his hand gently resting over his wife's. It's been a long time, he said. I'm glad you're doing well. Bella's eyes flickered to his wedding band. For a moment she saw what she had thrown away. Not the money, not the gifts, but the kind of love that doesn't come twice. She's lucky, Bella said quietly. Alex looked at his wife and replied, No, I'm the lucky one. Outside, as they left the restaurant, it began to rain, soft and silver, like that night years ago. But this time, Alex didn't watch the rain from behind a window. He walked through it, head held high, hand in hand with the woman who loved him for the man he had always been. And somewhere, far below, on some forgotten rooftop, a small ring still lay glinting faintly under the city lights. A memory of the life he left behind, and the man he became after letting it go. It had been 7 years since that night, the night Alex saw Bella again. 7 years since he realized that love, when true, doesn't burn bright for show. It glows quietly, steady as the heartbeat of a home. His life was full now, not perfect, but whole. The mornings began with sunlight spilling across their bedroom floor, painting his wife's face in gold. Her name was Emma. She was the kind of person who noticed things. The way the sky changed color before dawn, the way he always paused before finishing a sentence, as if searching for the right word. She worked as a teacher, loved old books and jasmine tea, and though she never wore diamonds, she had a small scar above her eyebrow, a faint, beautiful imperfection that made her face real, like a story written by life itself. Sometimes when Alex came home late from work, she would be waiting by the window with 2 cups of tea. You're building half the world, she teased softly, but don't forget to build a little rest for yourself too. He would smile, kiss her forehead, and for a moment, everything would be still. But even happy lives carry ghosts. On the anniversary of his grandmother's passing, Alex drove back to his hometown, a quiet, forgotten place where time seemed to walk slower. The streets were the same, cracked sidewalks, rusted fences, the faint smell of rain and earth. He parked near the old house that used to be his world. The window shutters were broken, the garden overgrown, and yet standing there, he felt the echo of his childhood, the warmth of his grandmother's voice, the whir of the small fan in her kitchen, the smell of fresh bread. He knelt by the gate and whispered, You were right. Everything you said. The world doesn't give, it tests. But I made it, Grandma. I made it. For a long time he stayed there, letting silence say the rest. On his way back to the city, the sky darkened. Thunder rolled across the horizon, and rain began to fall. Soft at first, then heavy, and that's when he saw it. A woman standing on the side of the road trying to wave down a car. Her umbrella had broken, her hair clung to her face, soaked through. He slowed down. When she lifted her head, the world seemed to pause. Bella. Years older, her face worn, her eyes no longer sharp but tired. She recognized him instantly. Alex? She said, disbelief in her voice. He stepped out, offered her his jacket without a word. She hesitated, then took it. They stood there for a moment, the rain drumming softly around them. You look different, she said finally. So do you, he replied. They drove in silence for a while, 2 people who once shared everything, now strangers tied by a ghost of what was. I heard about you, Bella said quietly, about your company, your wife. Emma, Alex said. The way he said her name, gentle, certain, made Bella look away. You're happy? She asked. He nodded. I am. There was no bitterness in his voice, Only peace. She smiled faintly, the kind of smile that knows it's too late. I thought I wanted everything, she said, but I didn't even know what everything was. The rain softened. They reached the city limits. He stopped the car near a cafe, the glow of streetlights reflecting in the puddles. Thank you for the ride, she said. Take care of yourself, Bella. She nodded, stepped out, and disappeared into the mist. For a long time, Alex sat there, watching the rain slide down the windshield. Then he smiled, not with triumph, not with regret, but with quiet understanding. That night, when he got home, Emma was sitting by the piano, humming a tune he didn't recognize. You're late, she said softly, but her eyes smiled. Got caught in the rain, he answered, setting his keys down. He joined her on the bench. She continued to play Voila, a slow, tender melody that wrapped around them like a heartbeat. What's that song? He asked. Something I made up, she said. It sounded like the rain. He closed his eyes, listening. Outside, the world kept moving. Cars, thunder, life. Inside, there was only music and warmth. And the woman who had taught him that love wasn't about what you had, but who you became together. Later that night, as he watched her sleep, Alex thought of that old rooftop. The rain, the ring, the darkness. He realized something then. The ring he once threw away hadn't marked the end of his love story. It had marked the beginning of the one that truly mattered. The city had changed again. New towers rose where old streets once stood, and the skyline glittered like a constellation made by men. Alex watched it from the balcony of his home, a quiet house surrounded by trees, far enough from the noise to still hear the wind. He was older now. There were silver strands in his hair, small lines around his eyes, but his gaze, calm, steady, curious, was the same. Behind him, laughter echoed, a child's laughter. Papa, look, it's flying. His daughter Lily was standing on the lawn below, holding a paper plane that wobbled through the air before diving into the grass. He smiled. Almost. You're getting closer. Emma stepped out beside him, wrapping a shawl around her shoulders. The evening light touched her hair, turning it gold. She's got your stubbornness, Emma said. She's got your heart, Alex replied. They stood there for a moment, two souls who had weathered every storm life could throw, watching the small miracle they had built together chase the last light of day. But even gentle years can turn without warning. That winter, Emma fell ill. It started as fatigue, then faint spells, then long nights in the hospital with sterile lights and whispered prayers. Alex stayed by her side through it all. He read to her, brought her flowers, learned to smile even when his chest felt hollow. You should rest, she would say softly. Not a chance, he'd answer. You're my favorite place to be. There were days when she felt strong, when her laughter returned, when Lily curled up beside her and drew pictures of all three of them holding hands. And then there were the other days, when silence weighed like stone, and all Alex could do was hold her hand and pretend not to see the fear in her eyes. One night, as snow began to fall outside the hospital window, Emma looked at him, really looked at him. Promise me something, she whispered. Anything. Don't let Lily forget how to dream. Even if it hurts. Especially if it hurts. He nodded, unable to speak. She smiled faintly. And when it rains, play her that song. You remember? The one that sounded like the rain, he said, voice trembling. Yes, that one. Her eyes closed. Her hand tightened around his once, then loosened. And just like that, the world went quiet. Months passed. The house felt too big, too still. Sometimes Alex caught himself turning toward the door, expecting her voice. Sometimes he woke in the middle of the night, reaching for a warmth that was no longer there. But Lily, she was his anchor. She reminded him to laugh, to breathe, to live. One rainy afternoon, he found her sitting at the piano, pressing keys carefully, slowly. The melody soft, uncertain. What are you playing, Lily? He asked. She smiled, her eyes bright. Mom's song, the one that sounds like the rain. He sat beside her, his throat tightening. Together they played, her small hands finding the notes, his guiding her gently. Outside, the rain fell in the same rhythm, as if the world remembered too. Years later, when Lily was grown, She asked her father why he never remarried. Alex smiled, the kind of smile that holds both sorrow and peace. Because some loves don't end, he said. They just change shape. Your mother's still here. Every time it rains, every time I hear music, every time you smile. Lily took his hand. Do you miss her? Every day, he said softly. But missing her reminds me how lucky I was to have her at all. On the anniversary of Emma's passing, Alex returned to the rooftop where he had once thrown away that ring, so many years ago. The city was unrecognizable now, but the wind felt the same. He looked down at the lights below and smiled. From his pocket, he took a small velvet box. Inside was the same ring, old but untarnished. A stranger had found it years earlier, turned it in, and somehow it found its way back to him. He held it up to the sky, the city lights dancing across the stone. Funny, he murmured. I thought this was the end. Turns out it was just the beginning. He placed the ring on the edge of the rooftop and whispered, For every goodbye, there's something that stays. Then he turned, walked away, and didn't look back. That night the rain began again. Soft, familiar, eternal. And somewhere in the rhythm of the drops, if you listened closely, you could almost hear a piano. A gentle melody that sounded like love, like memory, like the rain. The rain came softly that morning, the kind that carried memories rather than cold. It slid down the windows of Lily's apartment in the city, tapping like a gentle heartbeat. She had grown into a woman now, graceful, thoughtful, with her mother's eyes and her father's calm strength. The world had changed again, and so had she. Yet whenever it rained, she still felt something stir inside her, something she could never quite name. On the piano by the window sat a framed photograph, her parents smiling, caught in a summer afternoon decades ago. Next to it, a small wooden box. It had been left to her in her father's will. He had passed away peacefully 2 months earlier, quietly as he had lived. The box had remained unopened since. That morning, as the rain whispered outside, she finally found the courage. Her hands trembled slightly as she lifted the lid. Inside were only 2 things, a weathered notebook and a small velvet pouch. She opened the pouch first. Inside lay a ring, simple, silver, familiar. The same ring he had once thrown from a rooftop, the same one he had kept until the end. Her breath caught. She traced the cold metal with her fingers and then opened the notebook. The first page carried her father's handwriting, careful, steady, full of quiet warmth. My Lily, if you are reading this, it means I have finally gone to where your mother has been waiting. Don't cry for me. I had a long, full life, and it began the moment I met her, and again the day you were born. You know, when I was young, I thought love was something you chased, something grand, dramatic, impossible to hold. But your mother taught me that love isn't noise. It's silence shared. It's staying when it's hard. It's the sound of rain at 2 a.m. when the world feels too heavy and someone says, I'm here. I once threw this ring away because I thought my life had ended, but it found its way back, just like love always does. One day you'll love someone the way I loved your mother. It might not look perfect. It might even hurt. But don't be afraid of that. If it's real, it won't leave. It will change. It will grow. And it will stay inside you, even when everything else fades and when it rains. Play her song, the one that sounds like the rain. You'll understand why. Dad Lily read the letter 3 times before she could breathe again. The tears came quietly, not from sorrow but from gratitude. She placed the letter back in the box, then walked to the piano. Outside, the sky was gray, the city blurred through the curtain of rain. She sat down, placed her fingers on the keys, and began to play. The melody rose softly, gentle, trembling, like footsteps through a memory. It was her mother's song, the one her father had taught her when she was small. The notes filled the room, warm and bright, as if calling something back. For a moment, she could almost feel them both there. Her father standing behind her, smiling. Her mother's laughter echoing like wind through the open window. The ring gleamed faintly on the piano, catching the light of the storm. Lily closed her eyes, let the melody guide her hands, and whispered through her tears, I understand now. That evening, the rain finally stopped. The clouds broke apart, and sunlight spilled across the city. The air smelled of renewal, wet stone, warm earth, something eternal. Lily stepped onto the balcony and looked up at the clearing sky. She slipped the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly, and somewhere, in the soft rustle of leaves, in the hum of distant thunder, she thought she heard a familiar voice, gentle and proud. For every goodbye, there's something that stays. Epilogue. Years later, when Lily had a child of her own, she taught her how to listen to the rain. She told her stories of a man who built cities and a woman who taught him to dream. And whenever the sky turned gray and the first drops began to fall, they would sit by the window, open the old piano, and play the song that had outlived them all. The song that sounded like love, like memory, like the rain.